Jeanne Destro in for Ray Horner. And on the line with me right now, our professor of film studies, Joe Fortunato. Good morning, Joe. How are you?
Good morning, Jeanne. Good morning, everybody. And today we are going to take a trip down the holiday road and celebrate the 40th anniversary of National Lampoon's Vacation, which was released on July 29th, 1983, directed by Harold Ramis, written by the great John Hughes, starring, of course, Chevy Chase, Beverly D'Angelo, Randy Quaid, John Candy. It was a small budget at $15 million, but it made over $60 million, so it was a very popular film. The story and the script itself was inspired by an article that John Hughes wrote for the National Lampoon magazine, where he sort of described an ill-fated family trip to Disneyland when he was 5. Now, that was the original impetus for it, and it was more focused on the viewpoint of the kids. And when they rewrote it for the film, they kind of shifted that to the adults a little bit. And the cast really had a terrible time, when they filmed the scene inside Wally World, because they were all riding the roller coasters and other rides. And Chevy Chase has mentioned that many of the rides made him and the other cast members sick and vomit because they had to do it several times for each take. So it was a bit of an arduous, it was very hot. So it was a bit of an arduous filming experience for the cast. In fact, Anthony Michael Hall, who plays Rusty, in one of the scenes, it's kind of funny because there was a break in production for 4 months before they refilmed the end. I'll tell you in a minute, there was a previous ending. But in the previous scenes, he was the same height as his mother, Beverly D'Angelo. But when they went back to film 4 months later, he'd grown 3 inches, and so he was 3 inches taller than his mother at the end of the film.
Wow, that's interesting. So tell me more about the movie.
Well, I find this to be kind of a sweet story. You might recall in the film that there's Aunt Edna, played by Imogene Coca, as she brings along her dog that suffers a rough fate, as it were. But Chevy Chase actually adopted that dog named Dinky after the filming was complete.
He did.
So a happy ending for Dinky. The Griswold station wagon, also known as the family truckster, was created especially for the film. They actually designed it to make it look pretty hideous. And the funny thing about that is, whether it's coincidental or not, the sales of station wagons dropped significantly after the film, and they were soon replaced by early SUVs. So maybe that was just its time in history. But some people theorized that it was because the movie made station wagons look so uncool that people stopped buying them. The original ending for the film was quite different, actually. It didn't take place at Wally World. They went to the mansion of the Walt Disney-like owner of Wally World, and they broke in with a fake gun, and they made the fake Walt sing and dance to entertain the Griswolds. Then Christy Brinkley, who you might remember has a cameo in the film, shows up as his daughter and convinces the Walt character to drop the charges. Then the Griswolds go home on a plane, and Clark hijacks the plane. So that's all crazy. None of that ended up being in the film. They changed it to make it all take place at Wally World, which is probably what it should have been done in the first place.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I love that movie, and I'm sure a lot of people out there in our audience are smiling and laughing along with you talking about this famous movie. Now, one of the things I've always been wondering, and I'm sure you know the answer to this, I do not, what's been happening with the stars of that movie since that time?
Well, they all have gone on to do work. Obviously, Chevy Chase has had an up and down career in films, and Anthony Michael Hall was later on Saturday Night Live. So was Randy Quaid, and Anthony Michael Hall is now doing some, acting here and there. I think he's also directing, if I'm not mistaken. But he was just most recently on the Goldbergs. Beverly D'Angelo has worked. So, I don't think any of them went on to what we might consider, big stardom. but they've all pretty much worked semi-regularly. Speaking of the cast, John Candy, who of course has passed away. He was paid $1 million for his brief appearance at the end of that movie. And according to Harold Ramis, the director, he cast John Candy because he had enjoyed working with him on SCTV as well as the movie Stripes. This was also the film debut of Jane Perkowski, who a lot of people might know from 30 Rock and other things. It was Christy Brinkley's film debut. Kim Cattrall was the original choice for the wife Ellen. And I love this one. Maureen McCormick was considered for the role of Ellen. That's Marsha Brady, if you don't know. So Marsha Brady was looking for that role as the mother. Robin Williams was considered to play Cousin Eddie. And Bill Murray and Robert Klein were considered for the role of Clark Griswold before it went to Chevy Chase.
Huh, that's interesting. I guess the one that I was really wondering about is Chevy Chase. I mean, we really haven't heard much from him lately, right?
Lately, no. I'll be honest with you, I'm not the biggest Chevy Chase fan in the world. Although, ironically, I like a lot of his movies. I like this movie. I love Caddyshack. So it's, there's, I guess, a little bit of ambivalence for me there. But he hasn't done much lately, no.
Right, because I had
I
heard...
will say one other thing about the song, the famous song, Holiday Road, which was recorded specifically for this movie by Fleetwood Mac member Lindsey Buckingham. Now, originally, it only made it to number 82 on the Billboard charts, but it has gained popularity over the years because it was used in all the other vacation films. And I believe there was 3 or 4 sequels. So it's become sort of a staple or even a classic song, if you will.
Huh. I had heard that Chevy Chase was hard to work with, and maybe that's why he hadn't been getting roles.
That's quite possible. This is a little bit of a sidetrack thing, but I remember early in my career, I guess I was a young whippersnapper in Hollywood, and I was at some event where Sherry Lansing was speaking to us, and she was the head of Paramount at the time, and Paramount was developing or actually getting ready to air the Chevy Chase talk show, if anybody remembers that. And I don't know what possessed me, but I said to Sherry, I don't think this is going to work. And she was, understandably kind of indignant. But I just said, I don't think he appeals to enough people. And I was right.
Oh, okay. Well, it's good to be right. Anything else that you'd like to add before we close out here?
I think we kind of covered most of it. Imogene Coca, who's a legendary comedian from your shows and stuff. She actually suffered what they believed was a stroke during production.
Oh no!
And they had to stop filming that morning. She recovered, obviously, and she was a trooper and a professional and got back on set to finish the movie. Christy Brinkley, who I've already mentioned, the producers actually wanted her to appear nude in the film, but she refused.
Okay, well, good for her.
A compromise was reached where she would strip down to her undergarments before jumping in the pool with Clark. And kind of speaking of that sort of, rougher, the film was rated R, but they did, had a lot of profanity. And every time they shot a scene that had profanity, they'd reshoot it without the profanity for either television or foreign markets. And that's actually a kind of a common thing to do in filmmaking, so that's not really that unusual. But they did a lot of that on this film.
Okay. All right. Well, appreciate you being on with us this morning. Our film expert, Joe Fortunato, he does film school with us every Friday, and we appreciate him being on with us. I'm Jeanne Destro in for Ray Horner on 93.5 1590 WAKR.